Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings. So we do have some more stormy weather in the west over the next 24 hours. No named storm, but we could still see some very heavy rain and some pretty gusty winds as well, maybe getting up to 60 or 70 miles per hour once again for a time. We'll have a look at that all in detail in the latest UKV, going through the precipitation temperature and wind gusts over the coming days, as it is going to remain fairly unsettled with changeable temperatures at least for the next few days. As we're into the latter part of the week, as we'll see from the longer range charts, we could see for a time some milder air masses and some drier conditions, which is going to favour temperatures starting to rise. However, as we have seen over the past few days, that high pressure bringing warmer air in isn't going to last all too long. Pretty strong consensus now in around 7 or 8 days' time. So the end of this upcoming working week into that weekend and the following week, we could see colder polar maritime air or even Arctic air masses making a return as we see that high pressure ridge further northwards, allowing a northerly or northeasterly flow to come in. Now, it doesn't look too extreme at this stage, but it would be a shock to the system temperatures back into the single digits, overnight frosts further northwards, even the risk of some wintry showers. It's not concrete at this stage, but it is looking increasingly likely. Still, though, a few spanner in the works, like the GFS operational run today, which does build a very warm, big high-pressure system towards the end of its run, but at this stage it is on the warmer end of the Ensemble members. So do remember, if you enjoy videos, make sure you like and subscribe. And remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see all these showers coming in at the moment. And you can see they're all southwest to northeast aligned. That's where the wind direction is coming from. So it is still pretty mild out there. And actually been a pretty decent day where you've avoided the rain in the west. We are going to see more persistent rain. You can just see it off the radar there, just off the southwest coast. This heavier persistent rain is going to be moving in, and that's the sort of storm system we're going to see through tomorrow that could give some pretty heavy rain and even gusty winds, as we said a minute ago. Now, do look at the temperatures this evening. Still plenty of yellows. Temperatures still pretty mild. We see across Europe, very warm indeed. Still 20 degrees in places across Central and Northern Europe. And that's still because we've got that remnants of that incredibly warm or hot air mass we saw yesterday just pushing through. Of course, it will be dissipating for all, but still pretty mild here indeed. But as I said, air masses could still be coming from our north, and look, the northern hemisphere is still relatively cold. It's rapidly warming, but Greenland, Iceland, even up towards Scandinavia is still pretty chilly, still minus double digits in many of these areas overnight. So still very cold air is around, and it could filter in for a time as we head through the middle of the month. Now, if you look at the weather warnings, you can see we've got this wind warning issued for tomorrow from 6 p.m. tomorrow evening until 6 a.m. on Tuesday. So the windy weather's coming more in the evening, strong winds and large waves associated with this system. Maybe 40 to 50 miles per hour widely, as much as 60 or 70 along exposed coasts across Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. So pretty disruptive there, potentially. And then into Tuesday, we've got a more widespread wind warning for the far south coast from 1 a.m. until midday. Again, for similar winds, 40 to 50 miles per hour, maybe as high as 60. And then winds warning for the coastal areas of northwest England and for Wales, again from 1 a.m. until 3 p.m. Looking again 50 miles per hour widely, maybe as much as 60 to 65. And a yellow rain warning, as we are going to see some very heavy rain from 1 a.m. on Tuesday until 6 p.m. on Tuesday. Again, we could be seeing 20 to 40 millimetres quite widely, perhaps as high as 50 to 60 in a few isolated regions. Now, if you go over to the latest UKV, you can see all of those showers heading through at the moment, and we are going to see that persistent rain moving through tomorrow morning. As we head into the afternoon, that rain's going to lift northwards. It gives some quite widespread heavy rain in the west, and on the eastern edge, a bit of warm air could wrap in, and we could see some heavy thundery downpours for a time in the afternoon there, so do watch out for those around rush hour if you are in the east and southeast corner. As we head into Tuesday night, though, you see the low starts to wrap around, and that rain persists further northwards. That's why we got that warning across Scotland. And on the back edge of the low, this is where we see the very strong winds. So the low pressure system is arriving tomorrow, but the most disruptive conditions most likely Monday night through to Tuesday. And then on the back edge of that, it will eventually slowly clear northwards, wrap away, and things will turn dry through Tuesday afternoon into the evening. Into Wednesday, initially the morning is relatively dry, but then another spell of heavy and persistent rain moves through for the afternoon and kind of holds on all the way through the evening, all the way to Thursday. Now Thursday, we're kind of in between weather systems, not looking too bad at all. And as we head into Friday, still some rain in the north and west, but we are seeing higher pressure starting to build in. You can see it ridging up from the south, and that is going to try to turn things settled further southwards and warmer upper temperatures going pretty high by the end of the week. Could be seeing 20 degrees potentially in this sort of scenario. We'll have a look at those 2 meter temperatures in a minute. But as I said at the start of the video, not lasting all too long. Could be a good few days of decent conditions before it could rapidly go downhill as we see that wind direction change. Now, if you look at the wind gusts, you can see over the coming hours, winds will start to gust into Monday morning and into the afternoon, but the strongest winds really moving through on the back edge of this low through Monday evening into Tuesday morning. Again, 50 to 60 widely, maybe as high as 70 or 80 from this latest UKV run as it slowly lifts northwards. For most inland areas, the most disruptive winds will be through the early hours of Tuesday, so hopefully it doesn't cause too much disruption, but we still see some decent gusts there through Tuesday afternoon as well, before eventually clearing out to the North Sea. Now, if you look at the max temperature, you can see this afternoon we still saw 16, 17 degrees in the east, still pretty mild, and as we head into tomorrow, similar conditions. In the east are mild, maybe even warm in a few spots where we see some dry conditions, but further westwards, colder air wrapping in within the low, only 5 or 6 across parts of the Republic of Ireland. Into Tuesday, we'll all be in fresher conditions, and you can see that temperatures hardly getting much above 8 to 12 degrees as we see some polar maritime air move in. But this really is only just a sector within the back edge of the stronger low pressure system. So again, don't expect this to last all too long. As you can see into Wednesday, still chilly in the east, but turning much milder in the west as we see that transition to milder conditions again. By Thursday, temperatures widely, look at that, 17 to 19 degrees as that high pressure system builds in. And into Friday, look at that, 18 to 20 degrees, looking really quite nice there indeed. Similar to Saturday, if not a bit better than Saturday, because these temperatures are peaking in the afternoon, could be really quite pleasant if this did come off, as we see that high pressure build in, not only with dry conditions, but with a warmer air mass. But as we see now, that warmer air mass might not last all too long. After you start on the latest GFS, you see Storm Kathleen is filling in out to our north now. We see that next low move through tomorrow, and then we see a flat westerly. High pressure, though, builds in for the end of the week, and it could give drier and warmer conditions for a time. But it starts to lose out into the weekend, and you can see a northerly wind starts to break out. Now, as I said, the GFS is actually one of the milder runs today. It does have a northerly wind, but it's not too severe, and eventually the high pressure builds in and stops that northerly coming in, all that cold air. You see the temperature deviation, this pool of cold air goes to our east, just clipping the east coast, and that means that we don't see the coldest air, and we see that high pressure build more over the top of us, and in the extended range we see this stunning area of Azores high extension building over us with generally warmer air masses. Temperatures would be around 20 degrees with this. The only factor that could take the edge off those temperatures will be that northerly flow, because even though it looks like we're under the centre of the high, if we actually zoom in, you still see we've got isobars coming in off the North Sea. So it would be a light wind, but it would be a north or northeasterly, so it would be a little bit chillier there, especially for eastern areas, but relatively decent. Nowhere near as cool or as chilly as the other runs that we'll see now. Now, if you go over to the GM, this is keeping on that trend. Just spoiler, right? Is it keeping on that trend of colder conditions? See that westerly, that high pressure builds in early towards the Friday into the weekend, but then eventually low clears towards Scandinavia, high pressure trying to ridge northwards, and we see a pretty potent northerly wind. Now, it's kind of one round of northerlies there, pretty chilly conditions there, -5 isotherm getting in, and the setup here looks like it could produce another northerly bounce. As you can see, this high pressure is ridging towards Greenland, and we've got this other low exiting out of Iceland, so we are likely to see another northerly wind develop here. So it's not going to be an amazingly cold spell or anything like that, but it could be a few, or at least one kind of colder snaps that could keep it pretty chilly indeed as we head through the middle of the month. And if we do compare to the ECMWF, which is broadly similar, that high pressure builds in later this week, giving pretty decent conditions through to Saturday. But then that high pressure ridges to our north, that low pressure clears into Scandinavia, and we see that northerly wind once again. And you can see the air masses widely down to -5, maybe even the -10 isotherm getting in for some parts of Scotland. You can see, though, the air to our north, the cold air, is rapidly running out. So these sort of northerly winds are going to become less and less potent every week that we head further into spring. So don't worry, in a few weeks' time, any northerly wind won't actually be all too cold at all. But in the next couple of weeks, there is still the risk of something a little bit chillier, frosts, and generally cold conditions. And that's what a lot of the runs are favouring at the moment. Now, we can see this especially on the ensembles. Up and out over the next few days with that low, milder in the east at the moment, but then we see that colder air mass move through for a time during the middle of the week. And then we see those warmer air masses move in with dry conditions. So it's actually looking like a pretty decent spell for about 3 days. And then we see this big drop off towards the middle of the month. A little bit of precipitation that will most likely just be some convective showers, but generally below average air masses, down towards -5, maybe even lower from some runs, and staying pretty chilly for the foreseeable future. Now, there are some milder runs there, like the GFS in the longer term, and the control run, for example, but quite a few keep us cool and keep us pretty chilly indeed. And if you have a look at those 2-meter temperatures, you see a bit of a spike later this week, 20 degrees possible, and then a drop down to high single digits or low double digits, and then really struggling the low teens beyond that. Again, these are the actual temperatures, don't factor in the feel like temperature. So it could be 13, 14 degrees on the thermometer, but feel only like 7 or 8 if we get that wind coming in from the northeast. If we compare it to the ECMWF now, if we have a look at the midnight run, it's a similar picture. Up and down in the next couple of days, big warmer spell later this week, and then a big drop off as we head into the middle of the month with much colder conditions. And you can see it's a huge swing, about 15 to maybe as much as a 20-degree temperature swing in the upper air temperatures, from around 10 to 12 degrees at 850 HPA down to sort of -5 to maybe slightly lower in the space of about 2 days. So a big temperature contrast coming, so going from very warm to very cold in a very short space of time. And again, it's reflected on those 2-meter temperatures going up later this week, high teens, even 20 degrees, and then 9 or 10 in around 7 or 8 days' time, and really only gradually recovering beyond then. Beyond there, so 10-degree temperature drop coming potentially on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. Again, timings will have to be ironed out as we get nearer to that change in air mass, but regardless, potentially going to be warm for a time later this week. Get the shorts out, the t-shirts out, 20 degrees for a good couple of days, and dry conditions, and then you might need the winter coat out again as those temperatures do plummet into next week. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.